As we get into the final story of the day, this is your last class. You go to sixth period, but in sixth period you're only going to be there for like 2 minutes or so, and they're going to make an announcement to have you guys head down to the Aux Gym, and then you'll be down there with me and Melling and Blitz and stuff like that at the end of the day. If you have yearbook, you might want to bring it with you because you'll have a chance while you're there, but we'll help you out in that. Yes.
So like, when we're with our class, do we like split up and go to like the gym? Okay.
Just to remind you guys, you are still in my room. Please don't make me have to be mean to you as you try to pick fights with kids across the room.
Amy, this is where my yearbook is.
Wait, you did not use it.
No, because the kid next to you was trying to get herself kicked out. So I was trying not to.
Shut up. What? Okay. Are we going to fit on there? Isn't it like all the heroes?
It's just the
Isn't
heroes.
there like 100
Yeah, guys,
of us?
It's
So like, how are we all
Have my name in it again.
That you're going to find out magically
Your phone
when
is
we get
ringing.
down there.
Are we going to
I
stay?
know that.
Only if you want to.
I want some cheese.
When you are done and going through locker, if you have anything that is still usable, what do you need?
Oh my god, bro! What the butt?
Oh, the candles, that's what.
Yes, John.
Mr. Brovicast, did he get his name from that one cowboy? Who is this? The candle?
It's mine.
No, that's
If
mine.
It's mine, not mine. This is your Sharpie.
you have things,
Wait, look inside.
you're going to make me take your stuff and yell at Lucas, who's singing while I'm trying to talk. I think we just had a discussion the other day about the whole maturity being good people thing and not melting down on the last day. We'll see how well it goes. Anyway, if you have stuff, please don't throw it away. Either bring it to me, or if you, at the very least, if you leave it in your locker and leave your locker door open, I will come by and grab it. But there's stuff that I can use for next year. And then, yeah, you left the door open, just leave it there. They'll either come in or not. What's up? Not right now. I can later. Sorry, bye.
I sprayed. Yo, I on the bag.
I did send out the pictures on Remind yesterday. So if it's a thing that you are interested in, they are all out there and you can find them there. Leah?
Can I sign your book?
What's there?
Who's this?
Then I have one final story for you guys today.
Wait, is this yours?
I'm not crying.
No one's crying. I'm so ready to leave.
Trust me, at this point, I'm ready to be ready. Get
I'm
ready.
trying to cry.
Yeah.
How do I cry?
I'm not crying.
Just yawn.
There's no way I'm crying. Wait, this is yours, right? No, it's Edward.
Home children, I'm sorry, we're not recording class today. We're just not going to have it.
Wait, we have a black.
Bro, can you guys shut up?
Do you want McCandles? He's right there. So, today's story takes place when I was in 8th grade. 8th grade me decided that I really wanted to be popular. So part of that was I decided to do what I saw popular kids do, which was join the football team. Turns out you need to have things like skills to play football, which I did not have. I had never played football. I had never watched football. I knew nothing about football. But I decided to go out for it because that's what all the popular kids were doing, and I decided to join them for it. If you're trying to figure out which one I am,
The smallest one.
I'm the one that's the tall tree-like kid in the
You
back.
were 82.
I am not.
71.
And so with that one, when I tried out for the team, I remember the coach, Tal, asking, he's like, Brovicast, what positions can you play? I didn't know the name of any position, so I just said all of them. Because I thought that was the safe way to do it, but it turns out that that requires you to know how to play. He had me throw the football as quarterback. I could barely get it past the line. He had me try to catch. It bounced off my face. He had me try to be a running back. I just got pushed around. Turned out the only thing I was somewhat good at was tackling and jumping on people because I have a younger brother and I'd been practicing doing that for years. Gia.
Oh, that was my grandpa's number. He played for
Go ahead.
You played for the Colts?
So Coach eventually decided to put me in what he called, or what was called defensive tackle, which is on defense, and you're on the line, and as he explained it to me, you just have to follow wherever the ball is. Whoever hikes the ball, you follow it. If the quarterback has it, you go after him. If he throws it to someone, you go after them. And I was like, done. Turns out that was a skill I could do. Did not require much thinking or ability, but I could run after and chase people. Just like I could chase Lucas down to the office for walking across. Thank you. Yeah, a little distracting there, Tiger. So I was able to get in on things like kickoff return, and the kicking of the extra point on the things, because the coach said I apparently could not hurt the team in those positions, which was quite the benefit to me. Hi, Jared. And so, turns out there were kids on the team who were not happy I was on the team because they were good and I was not, and they did not like having someone who was really bad on the team. I did, by the way, get the little individual pictures. So you get to see. That was me in 8th grade as I was on the team from there. It's okay if you're intimidated by the guns I'm bringing there. It was something. So on the team, there was a kid by the name of Darren Thompson who was good. He was a starter, he had skills, and he hated the fact that I was on his team bringing it down. So within the first 2 days, when he'd watched me screw up every single play I was in, Darren made it his goal to get me to quit the football team. So within the first couple days, every time Darren would see me, we were running laps, he'd just like, quit the team. What Darren didn't realize is that I was both stubborn and dumb, and when you're stubborn and dumb, you don't do things other people tell you. And I refused to quit the team because that's where the popular kids were, so I said no. So when he realized I was not going to quit the team when he yelled at me, he decided to get more creative. And we had a thing that was called a line drill. And a line drill is in football is when you have to get down in the little 3-point stance and you get across from another person in the 3-point stance. There's like a line between you, and it's like an actual football game where they blow the whistle and you run and hit each other. And the idea is to try to push the other person backwards. And so I lined up from this other kid, coach blew the whistle, I ran into the kid, was not very good. We both kind of just like slapped against each other a couple times because I wasn't good and I was put with the other not good kids. Till Darren had an idea. Darren decided that he was going to use this opportunity to get me to quit. So about 3 days in of us doing all of these drills, I get down into my little 3-point stance, and all of a sudden, instead of the kid on the C team that I normally get to go against, Darren was across from me, who was one of the starters. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And then Darren smiled at me, and I'm like, that's kind of even more interesting that he's smiling at me. Coach blows the whistle, and I come up and I come running at him to hit him, and Darren uses what we call skill. He went low and then shot upwards into me and ended up hitting me right below the pads with both of his hands, lifting me into the air and then planting me straight into the ground. And I hit the ground like, hey, and made a little wheezy sound. And then he was like, quit the team. And I went, no. And this continued for that whole practice and into the second day. By the time we got to the third day of him lining up across from me, something unexpected happened. He made me better at football because I kept watching what he was doing when he would hit me, and I realized he kept going low, so I started getting lower, and I realized he kept putting his foot behind him to push off against me, and I'm like, well, I'm going to put my foot behind me too. And I remember the practice when all of a sudden we line up against each other, and he comes at me, and I come up and plant my back foot, and I come low, and when he hit me, I didn't fall down. Instead, I slid backwards, and I went, eek! And I went, ha ha ha! And I was all excited because I didn't get knocked down. And he stepped into me and went, boom! And it hit me with both fists right in the chest. And I went, huh! And hit the ground. And he leaned over me again. He goes, quit the team! And I went, ow! So the next day, when he realized knocking me down wasn't going to work, he got creative. And he called over his friend Rob, who was also a starter on the team.
Big boy.
But Rob was a bigger boy. And I lined up. Again, Darren lines up across me, like, I'm ready for this. I can take Darren hit. And I look over, and next to Darren is Rob. Me, Darren, Rob, random kid next to me. And I'm like, okay, Rob's not normally next to me because, again, we're down in the C team area, and they're normally down there with the starters, but okay. Coach blows the whistle. I go over to hit Darren, and I don't get hit by one. I get hit by two. both Darren and Rob, who had turned, both hit me at the same time. Both of them picked me up and planted me into the ground. And I again went, hey! And they both stood above me and went, quit the tee! And I went, no! So this continues throughout the season of them harassing me, but me being too dumb and stubborn to quit. Made it all the way to the last game of the season. And it was exciting because our last game was going to be played at the high school at night with like the big lights and a whole big crowd. Like everyone was invited, and the coach even said like everyone's going to get a chance to play. And I'm like, even me? And he was like, even you. And I'm like, hee hee hee. And I was excited. And it was a close game. And I remember came down to the last play. We were ahead, and the other team had to kick a field goal to win. And I got to go in on the field goal defense, where you're trying to stop it from happening, because the coach is putting in a whole bunch of tall people to try and stop the kick from happening. And I remember being out there in the back area, my little gangly arms, and I watched the kid do the whole run up, the hike, and then the kick, and the ball went. Have you guys seen car dealerships, those little wavy inflatable guys? That's what I tried to channel, and I went up and went as tall as I could and like waved my arms back and forth. And then when I went up and I had my eyes closed and I'm waving them, as my arms went back and forth, I felt the football brush against my fingertips, and then I heard it hit the ground behind me. And I hit the ground, and I turned around, and the ball did not go through the uprights. It like landed short. And I was like, oh, I did a thing, like a football thing. And I was excited, and the whole team all starts jumping up and down, and I'm like, yeah, and we won, and we all go running off to the sideline, and we're all cheering, and it's just like every movie you've seen, and I was all excited, and the coach goes, who did that? Who blocked that ball? And I had my moment to shine, and the whole not quitting the entire season was finally going to come true. And Darren steps in front of me and goes, that was me, coach. I blocked that shot. And I went, what? And I looked at him, and all of the other kids out there were like, good job, Darren. And he was like, yeah. And then he turned and gave me the look, and I was like, but I realized I couldn't say anything, because then it would look like I was trying to take credit for something he did, even though he was the big fat jerk face. And I was like, you know what? In my heart, I know I did it. I don't have to worry about that. Life is fine. I can move past this. And I figured I would move past this. I know I did a thing. I don't have to have the celebrating. It's all good. So I just took all of that anger and I pushed it down deep, because that's a really healthy thing to do. So next day, we have the last practice where we had to turn in our uniforms. We had like a little award ceremony. And our locker room was a lot like our locker rooms here, where it has those weird little aisle things. And I remember I had gone up and turned in my uniform, because the coach was calling us up one by one. And I gave the uniform, and I was walking back down the aisle. And as I was walking down the aisle, I noticed Darren was walking towards me. And I don't know why. He wasn't turning anything in, but he decided to walk down the aisle at that moment. And I was like, you know what? Season's over. I don't have to pay any more attention to this kid, so I'm going to ignore him. And as I walk by him, he does the shoulder thing when you like hit someone in the shoulder. And as he walked by me, he smacked me hard enough that I went back and stumbled for a second. And if you've ever heard stories about someone who like goes into a rage and you see red and you kind of lose control, this was one of the only times that's ever happened to me. But when he hit me and did that, I went back and I went, and I ran at him, and I grabbed his shirt and I wrapped my hands into his shirt, and I don't know how I did this with these things right here. It was like a mom picking up a car off of a child. I picked him up into the air and then slammed him backwards against the locker. So I was holding him up like this, and then I start picking him and then smacking him back, and I start going, what is your problem? And every time I do it, his head smacks the little lockers behind him, and it makes that sound. And then all of a sudden, after I get done, I was like, what is your problem? And I look at him, and he's looking at me, and his eyes are big. And all of a sudden, I realize the whole team is looking at me, and I just go, oh, and he slides down the locker while staring at me, and we're both just staring at each other. And he gets a mean look, and he goes, do you want to fight? I've never been in a fight in my life, but the whole team is staring at me, and hitting him does sound really good. So I go, yes, I do. And he goes, fine, then you and I are going to fight outside at the baseball diamond as soon as practice is over. And I go, yes, we are. And then I took my hands off him, and I walked over towards my friends, and he walked over towards his friends, and I sat down next to my friends, and they go, did you just challenge Darren to a fight? And I go, I think I just challenged Darren to a fight. And they go, he's going to kill you. And I'm like, he's probably going to kill me. Darren had things like muscles. I didn't have anything like that. I had spaghetti. And they're like, and so my friends were trying to talk me up by telling me how badly he was going to kill me. But I was like, I don't care. I'm not going to back down. I'm going to get into this whole fight thing. We're going to give it a try. It's the first fight I've ever been in. And then we had to go to a little award ceremony. Stella?
Do you have his picture that was like that?
No, that would be really creepy. Sorry.
Well, I just wanted to see how big his muscles were.
No, I don't know. Probably from nowadays standards, not but for me, little skinny thing, anything felt like muscles. And we had to go to the little award ceremony, and at the little award ceremony, Noblesville Junior High had one that was like movie theaters, where like the seats go up like at a little angle. And I remember like all the varsity kids or the A team sat down at the bottom because they got all the awards, and like us other kids had to sit up at the top. And I remember I was sitting up at the top watching him, and my friends kept giving me advice like, have you ever been in a fight? I'm like, I hit my brother once, but I got grounded. And they're like, well, what you want to do is you want to punch him in the face. I go, all right, punch him. They're like, you always want to be the first one to throw a punch. I'm like, first one to throw a punch. And I'm going over all the advice in my head. And then Darren kept turning around to look at me, and every time he did, he would do the little hand punchy thing. He's like, bam, and he'd punch his hand. It was like, yeah. And I remember I tried to intimidate him because I looked down at him one time and I was like, yata! And it was not nearly as intimidating as you might think. He was like, huh? And I'm like, I don't know. Practice gets done, and the coach is like, it's been a good season. Thank you guys all for being here. Hope you guys play in high school. And our whole team, because everyone knew about this fight, we all get up and left practice together. And we had a baseball diamond, which was right across the parking lot. Much like here, like where you guys were walking for Kona Ice, it was like just right across there, and we had a little baseball diamond. Whole team goes over there. Just like you've seen in TV shows and movies, we went to home plate, and they formed a circle around us. And they formed a circle, and I stood across from him, and the whole circle starts chanting the fight, 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 fight. And I'm standing across from him, and I'm holding up my little hands in front of me. This thing had not been invented yet, so it was just me trying to hold up my hands. And he was holding up his hands, and we're doing this little thing where we're walking around in circles over home plate, and we're sort of like looking at each other. And I'm remembering all the advice my friends gave me about throw the first punch and aim for the face. And in my head, I'm telling myself, aim for the face, throw the first punch. You can do this whole thing. And in my head, I was trying to talk myself into throwing that first punch because I'd never actually punched someone in the face before. But I was like, you can do this. And as I was in the process of talking myself into it, Darren helped me out. And Darren just goes, wham! And just popped me right in the nose. And then my whole head rocked backward. And for the second time that day, I saw red. And I kind of lost control. And I'm not proud of what I did. When he hit me, my head went back, and I stumbled. And instead of running at him and punching him, I went, and I leaped through the air at him. And I remember I landed on his chest, brought my legs up, and I rode him to the ground. And I ended up landing on top of him, and he went, Hah! And once we hit the ground, I started swinging. And I was hitting him, I hit him in the face, in the chest, I started hitting the baseball plate, I hit the dirt. At one point, I think I hit a bird. I was just swinging at anything I could hit, and he was like, no, what? I'm just punching, I could hear people screaming, and then all of a sudden, there were arms on me, pulling me backwards. And I remember my arms were still going as I got pulled backwards. And I turned, I'm like, what? And it was his friends who were pulling me off of him. And I'm like, and I'm like, what? And Darren gets up, and he's got snot and blood on the front of his face. He's like, I win. And I went, what? He goes, where I'm from, first blood wins, and I got first blood. We were both little white kids from Noblesville. Like, I don't know where he was from, but he was like, where I'm from. And I remember my reply. He goes, where I come from, first blood wins, and I win. And I went, I'm not done hitting you. I like how it felt. And he goes, what? And I'm like, I liked hitting you. I want to hit you more. And he goes, no. And he just turns around and leaves. I'm like, isn't a fight done when I'm ready to be done fighting? Like, I want to punch him more. But all of his friends, they walk away like cheering him on. And I'm like, what was going on? And my friends walk up and they go, what was that? And I'm like, that was a fight. And they go, no. What was that thing you did? And I'm like, what thing? Like when you went through the air going, rah, and you landed on him. And I'm like, oh, that thing. I'm like, it was a move. And so I then had to walk out to the parking lot, and I was covered in dirt and blood and looked all awful. And my mom was sitting right there waiting for me. So I walked out, and I just sat in the front seat next to her. And she was like, hey, hon, how was your life? Holy crap. And she looks at me. She's like, what happened? I was like, I got in a fight. She goes, you got in a fight? I go, uh-huh. I go, with that kid, Darren, who's been harassing me the whole year. She goes, did you win? And I went, I don't know. And she goes, what? How do you not know? And I'm like, well, he says he won, but I really liked hitting him, and I wanted to hit him more. And she goes, ooh, hon, you know fighting is wrong. And I went, I know. And she goes, do you want to go get ice cream? And I went, yes, I do. And so she took me to Dairy Queen, and I got to sit in the parking lot, and I got to eat ice cream, which was a Blizzard Oreo, still remember it, and I got to tell my mom the story about me getting into a fight and what happened that year, and I never had to deal with Darren again. That was like the last time for the year I had to deal with him. So the moral is, don't get into fights unless they're a jerk and you really like hitting them. I'm pretty sure Abby is not a jerk, but you do seem to enjoy hitting her. So that does make it interesting. That makes it totally okay. I tracked down a couple of embarrassing pictures of me when I was around your age. This was me. I was 15 at Conner Prairie, and I was walking on little stilty things. So I thought you would enjoy it. Head to 6th period, and then we'll take you down.